Piece of cake.
In my opinion, the show Bojack Horseman really begins in Season 1, Episode 11, when Bojack goes to a panel Diane is on and asks her this.
Do you think it's too late for me?
What?
I mean, am I just doomed to be the person that I am? The person in that book?
Bojack,
I need you to tell me that I'm a good person. I know that I can be selfish and narcissistic and self-destructive, but underneath all that, deep down, I'm a good person, and I need you to tell me that I'm good.
These are questions we continue to see explored throughout the series, questions that will come front and center in the most important moments of Season 5. What makes one a good person? What makes one a bad person? And are these even categories we can use to understand our main character, the endlessly flawed, selfish, and unlikable Bojack Horseman? Diane, sadly enough, isn't able to muster a response until the end of the next episode in the final moments of the first season.
Do you remember the last time I saw you and you asked me if I thought you were a good person deep down?
Do I remember that? Yeah, vaguely.
You really caught me off guard. I didn't know what to say.
Well, do you think I'm a good person? Deep down?
That's the thing. I don't think I believe in deep down. I kind of think all you are is just the things that you do.
Well, that's depressing.
Diane's argument here is a convincing one, that people aren't defined by some innate qualities, but rather by their actions, by the things they do. And while the show has flirted with these themes since Season 1, it's in Season 5 that we finally confront them head-on. In the season's key storyline, we get an interesting meta-narrative. Bojack stars in a show called Filbert, whose main character shares a number of similarities with himself.
Why does John Filbert's house look the same as my house?
I've never been to your house. The set was designed to reflect Detective Filbert, spare, lonely, precariously balanced on a hill of his own isolation.
The running joke throughout the season, which becomes less and less funny, is that Bojack is Filbert. And with that, the writers can use the show Filbert to comment on their own series. Diane is hired on as a writing consultant for Filbert, but when the show achieves the success many writers would dream of, similar to the success Bojack has received, she questions whether or not she's actually positively affected the culture. Before the premiere, Bojack introduces Episode 1 with a dark reflection on his relationship to the show.
I've done so many unforgivable things, and I think that that's what this show says, is that we're all terrible, so therefore we're all okay.
What?
And I think that's a really powerful message.
And after an overwhelmingly positive reception from the audience, Diane reflects on the show's message. And with this thin veil, she actually reflects on the show we're watching, Bojack Horseman.
Did you really mean what you said before the screening? About how Filbert made you feel okay about yourself?
Oh, I don't know, I was just...
Because, that's not the point of Filbert, for guys to watch it and feel okay.
Diane, it's a compliment. You did a good job. Relax.
I don't want you or anyone else justifying their shitty behavior because of the show.
Both Filbert and the show Bojack Horseman feature complex characters who are ultimately just shitty, awful people. In a sobering moment for both the show's writers and for the audience, we all take a moment to reflect on our relationship to Bojack Horseman. In a world of prestige television filled with complex anti-heroes who can be loved despite their vile behavior and countless misdeeds, the writers of Bojack ask us to reflect on our relationship to these types of characters. Obviously, Bojack isn't a likable protagonist, but has the purpose of the show to this point been an attempt to garner sympathy for an irredeemably awful person? And is that a flawed mission? These are complex questions, certainly without simple answers. And in the next episode, we confront these questions further when Bojack loses his mind and violently strangles his then-girlfriend and co-star, Gina Cazador.
Bojack, he said cut.
Bojack? Buddy? I think he's really strangling her.
What? Oh no. Turn the camera back on.
Gina, you okay?
Okay, that's enough.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Suddenly, we as viewers are submerged in the show's most claustrophobic episode to date. If people are defined by their actions, if who we are is what we do, and Bojack Horseman has now assaulted a woman on the set of a television show, where do we go from here? In a world in which men in Hollywood are constantly given second chances, offered redemption, The creators of Bojack Horseman make us question our relationship to him in one episode, and in the next, turn his repulsiveness up about 100 notches. Rather than figuring out some way to garner sympathy, offering a redeeming moment to buffer our relationship to him and his misdeeds, Bojack only spirals further. At the end of season 5, it doesn't matter that Bojack is funny, or that, like Larry David, he's willing to say what everyone's thinking, or that his childhood was awful, or that he can't seem to find happiness anywhere he looks. It doesn't matter who he is and what he's like. What matters is what he's done and what he will do. And never is that felt more viscerally than in the sobbing eyes of Gina as she sees Bojack losing his mind in a drug-fueled paranoia. He needs to own up to his actions instead of trying to justify them or to find some innate goodness underneath. But at the end of season 5, Bojack attempts one last bit of mental gymnastics to avoid truly changing his ways. One of the staples of the series so far is Bojack's ability to resign himself to self-loathing and misery, in a complete 180 turn from his original goal to convince Diane that, deep down, he's good. He now wants to accept that, deep down, he's just a bad person.
You're a real stupid piece of shit.
By crystallizing the idea that he's a piece of shit, that his awfulness is somehow innate and unchangeable, he manages to justify his cycles of abuse. If he's just a bad person, then these situations are simply inevitable. It's the same as resigning oneself to unhappiness. Unhappy people must wake up unhappy. Bad people must do bad things. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. In the last few moments of the season, Bojack asks Diane to write an exposé on his past, to hold him accountable for his actions, to tell the world he's simply a bad person. But Diane refuses, returning to one of the show's central themes.
Diane, please, I need this. I'm a bad guy, and the world needs to know.
There's no such thing as bad guys or good guys. We're all just guys who do good stuff sometimes and bad stuff sometimes, and all we can do is try to do less bad stuff and more good stuff. But you're never going to be good because you're not bad. So you need to stop using that as an excuse.
In Diane's opinion, Bojack's desire to be seen as a bad person is just another way to refuse to own up to his day-to-day actions. Instead of improving his behavior, working on himself as a person, he wants to cement the reality that, deep down, he's just a bad person. It's an overly simplistic and entirely unproductive way to think of oneself. What Diane wants, and practically forces him to do, is for him to admit that in reality, each and every day he's making these decisions, taking these actions. There's no good or bad underneath forcing him to do so, and what he really needs to do is change. Like many powerful men, Bojack Horseman isn't yet being held publicly accountable for his actions. Maybe he will be, and maybe he won't. But in a surprisingly honest meta move, the show does at least hold itself and us as viewers accountable for our relationship to him. So with all that, we end season 5 not with a flawed protagonist we can still find ways to love, nor with a complex anti-hero we can question and yet quietly respect, but instead with the abusive, indefensible male Hollywood celebrity that, in 2018, we deserve. What's fascinating to me, though, is Bojack's response to Diane at the end of season 1.
That's the thing. I don't think I believe in deep down. I kind of think all you are is just the things that you do.
Well, that's depressing.
Obviously, I understand why he thinks this is depressing in the moment, since he's done so many bad things, and wishes he could point to some goodness underneath. But I don't think this is depressing at all. Once Bojack can finally wrap his head around the idea that people are their actions, that there's no such thing as an innately good or bad person, that we get to choose moment to moment who we're gonna be, what he should feel is free.